Let's talk some Saints. They'll take on the Panthers coming up on Sunday. Luke Johnson covers the black and gold for The Advocate and NOLA.com. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how we doing?
Doing fantastic, my man. Thank you for having me on.
It is our pleasure. That was solid effort back last week in Tampa. What was your biggest takeaway from it?
I mean, I think that was their best win of the season, which I know is not really saying a whole lot since I have three options to choose from here, but let's call it their best performance of the season, top to bottom. I think special teams still a work in progress for this team, but you start this game off with a 55-yard kick return from Mason Tipton, who I think has done a nice job as a returner since they traded for Rashid Shaheed. You get an opening drive touchdown for only the second time all year, first time in forever, first time since September for that team. And then it just continued kind of down that track. Obviously, we're still waiting on this team to put together a really truly explosive offensive performance. But when you're playing in the elements and you got a rookie quarterback going up against a team that has dominated the division for 4 years, and he makes just a crazy play in the fourth quarter to give you the go-ahead touchdown. I went and looked at it after the game. They've had 30 drives inside the final 10 minutes of the fourth quarter since Drew Brees retired. 30 opportunities to take a lead with a touchdown. And they've had 5 touchdowns in those 30 drives, right? This was the 5th. And this is only the second time that they've actually held on to that go-ahead score and won the game. That feels meaningful. It feels meaningful to have Shuck converting a couple third downs on that 4-minute drive. Obviously, they weren't able to close out the clock, but he's extending that clock by an extra minute and a half, 2 minutes by hitting Devon Bailey twice on that drive. It's incredibly encouraging to see the defense, which I think has played very well over the last month or so, to shut the game down on the final drive. Tampa needs to go 80 yards for a touchdown. They don't even get 10. I just think there was so much from that game that you have to feel really good about it in the future. Obviously, this Saints team is not going to the playoffs this year. They've been eliminated for a couple of weeks now. But, there's some real stuff here that you can feel very, very confident about going into 2026.
Stick with Shuck. It's obviously the biggest storyline. Do you feel he is doing enough from inside the pocket? I love the scramble plays, and he's got that in the bag, but you got to win from the pocket. How do you feel that's progressing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he is not a finished product yet. But I think the in-structure plays are there for him. And I think he's done a nice job of that. I just referenced those 2 third-down conversions. Both of those plays, he's standing tall in the pocket. He's got pressure in his face, pressure down by his feet. On one of those throws to Bailey, he's got, his arm gets clipped by a defensive lineman, and he still makes the play. The stuff out of structure, out of pocket, the scramble stuff is stuff that you need quarterbacks to do in the modern NFL. Peyton Manning is one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. If you drop them into today's NFL, you'd be limited because of what you need quarterbacks to do in this era. But you also need to be able to win from the pocket. And that is something that I think is a clear upgrade between Shuck and say Spencer Rattler earlier this year, is the within structure plays are there and can be made. It can be better, yes, but you can see the stuff there now, 5 starts into his career. I think that's going to be something that we see continue to progress.
How do you explain how well the Saints ran the ball on Sunday against Tampa?
I don't want to make this like a Tyler Shough segment, but I do think that opens up stuff for the rest of the team, right? When you have a quarterback who's able to take a read option around the left end for a 34-yard touchdown, or he had an 11-yard scramble earlier, or an 11-yard design run earlier in the game. That does force the defense to account for him in the run game. And I think, as soon as you saw him hit that big run with Shuck for a touchdown, the very next drive, Devin Neal's getting a 21-yarder. I think that helps. I don't think this is something that we're going to be able to count on over the rest of the year, just because that's, I think, only the 4th time this year the Saints have topped 100 yards on the ground. Their interior line is still kind of a mess. I think their scheme could really use a take it under the hood, look at it under a magnifying glass, whatever like term you want to use for their run scheme. I think they need to take a hard look at it this offseason because it just has not worked this year. And I don't think you can really just say like, oh, our running backs aren't explosive. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But I think the threat of Shuck as a runner opens stuff up for the other guys, which is why I'd like to see like a little bit more of it, right? Just more consistently using that aspect of Tyler's game. Not a lot more of it. Obviously, he had 4 season-ending injuries in college, and a lot of that was when he was in run-heavy offenses. Like, I don't think he needs to be carrying the ball 10, 11 times a game. But, like, 3 or 4 design runs, I think I feel pretty good about it, especially if the messaging to Shuck is clear where you're saying, hey, like, Jeff Duncan said this on our podcast the other day. It's touchdown, first down, or get down, Don't try to go out and play hero ball. I think if they can do that, it'll open more stuff up for their offense. That includes the passing game too.
Luke Johnson's our guest, covers the Saints for theadvocate.NOLA.com with us on Thursdays. All right, let's shift forward to Carolina. Obviously, the Saints got a nice win in Charlotte. That's when I kind of thought Carolina was not good at all, and I don't feel that way anymore. How do you feel about this Panthers team?
I have no idea what to make of them, man.
Okay.
Like, I really don't. I mean, they go out. They got really manhandled in that Saints game, and it's not the first time that they've like been beaten by a bad team this year. But then, then they beat the Rams the last time out. They've beaten the Packers. Like they've beaten some really really good teams this year, and I just like they feel to me like a complete Jekyll and Hyde team, which kind of makes a lot of sense. They get a second-year head coach. They got a really young roster. Who knows what it's going to be week to week. But I think this specific Saints team has kind of played them tough, or even you go back to week 1 of last year where they beat the brakes off them. I think Bryce Young has kind of struggled against this defense. Like, I could see this being a competitive game. I could also see the Panthers being like, oh, like the NFC South is up for us, and we're going to put together a good game plan and go out and beat the brakes off the Saints. Like, there's such a wide range of outcomes for this game because like the Panthers have just been like an impossible team to predict from week to week.
Brandon Staley's group's getting a little bit better. They were obviously great in Charlotte, and they were very good last week in the rain in Tampa. What's object number 1 against this Carolina team?
I mean, with them, I think it always has to be, it's got to start with stopping their run game, which is exactly what they did in that Week 10 game. Going into that game, I mean, I'm sure everybody remembers Rico Dowdle was like the story of the league at that point. He's averaging like 130 rushing yards per game in like his 5 games going into that game, and they shut him down. And when you force Bryce Young to beat you, I think that's a matchup you want to be in. But I think they've kind of turned it back into more of a committee approach at running back, and I think this Saints defense is well suited to stopping a guy like Rico Dowdle. They're a physical unit that tackles pretty well. I think when we've seen them have a little bit more issues against the run, it's against the more explosive types of backs. So if Chuba Hubbard is the lead back in this game, maybe they can find a little bit more success there. The Panthers, I mean, and make this to where it's not just like, hey, Bryce Young, go beat this secondary that's allowing 130 yards per game in the last 5 games. I think that to me is the key to this. Is they gotta keep that ground game under control and force Bryce Young to beat him.
How many do you think they win in the last 4?
I'm gonna go 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 2-2 down the stretch. I think that feels right. I can get them to 5 wins, which is I think right about what I had them pegged at the beginning of the season. So, look, to me, it's just about like, does Tyler Shough continue to show he's the guy? Like, can you feel good about bits and pieces of this team to know you have stuff to build around going into the future? That's all that's important. I don't think the win total really matters at the end of the season. Just show me that you have some really good foundational pieces.
You can follow him on Twitter at @LukeJohnson. You can read all this stuff in the Advocate and NOLA.com. He'll be there in the Dome on Sunday. Saints and Panthers from New Orleans. Thanks, Luke.
My pleasure, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.